Hi, everybody. Hope everyone's good. Grab a chair because you'll need one today for class. So just have it nearby somewhere. I hope you've all had a good weekend. Right? Just because I know it's an unprecedented time of trial doesn't mean you can't have something good out of it. So, you ready? You can talk. You don't not just.
You can't hear me.
Doesn't matter. I can hear you. You at least get the haircut. No. All right. So go ahead, sit back on a bolster or some blankets, something to help elevate your pelvis. Use a block if you need. You can ease in with the corgi. All right. So when you sit, cross the shins, one in front of the other, but put the foot underneath its opposite knee, directly under. So if I took my hand past my dog, to the outside of your thigh, and I could touch, and I dropped it, my finger straight down, it would touch your heel. Right. Flex the foot, keep the foot flexed. So not just the toes, but flex the whole foot. You're really cranking that ankle so you can only feel the pinky side of the foot touch the floor. Do not allow the ankle to lay on the floor. Keep your feet flexed, press your hands in your thighs, lift your spine up. Drop your shoulders down. I got them. Take another breath, press your hands into your thighs, bring your back ribs in, side rib forward, front rib up. Move the head back slightly as you exhale and let the shoulders move down the back side of the body. Do not squeeze or flex them back. Your rib cage is doing the flex, so your chest muscles are doing the flex, not your shoulder or the neck muscle. That's just you're directing it back and down rather than up and forward or up at all. Let your eyes close, chin neutral. So over the past few weeks at the Tuesday class, I've been kind of introducing and giving a small kind of toe in the door on the Yoga Sutras. This would be the 7th one. So in the past 5th and 6th, it was discussed the 5 things that create confusion or unfocus in the mind. On the 7th, it's very short, but it lists the 3 things that creates right knowledge in the mind. And so that is direct cognition, inference, and testimony are the sources of knowledge. That's literally the entire thing. Direct cognition, inference, and testimony are the sources of knowledge. So you get your senses through experience of your organs, what comes in through the eyes, touch, taste, smell, sound. Right, but there's also the chance of our senses misleading us. Mirages in the desert, mishearing something. And it takes inference experience to help make sure the senses are right, because you know that smoke is created when there's fire. When you see smoke off in the distance, you infer because of your experience there's fire. So those 2 senses are now working in conjunction. And then testimony. Testimony from those that are practiced, experienced, trusted. You listen to your teacher maybe, your friend who's been there, been through something similar. Right? You go to the reviews on Amazon or on Rotten Tomatoes. Right? So when you get into your yoga practice today, how can you use direct cognition, inference, and testimony in your practice to help you make sure that you are on track with what you are wanting to, 1, get out of this work, and that what you're getting out of this work is directly beneficial to you in your life, right? And I know that can sound very selfish, asking for something that is beneficial for you. But remember, yoga practice is not just something that you're sold, right? You're not just being given the benefits of yoga. You are creating the benefits of yoga. The teacher can only go so far. Our testimony only gets you so far. It's one of 3 pieces. It is not all of the pieces. The other 2 are important to make sure the third one stays true. Your inference and your cognitive senses are needed to make sure that the teacher you have is the right one. But it is you that's here creating these things. And in an unprecedented time for our lives. For at least most of us, I would say. When you get on the mat, regardless of what else is coming on, all the modulations of the mind, can you get into your experience of this time, experience of what you want, what you're getting, what you're receiving, and make it something. Make sure it's what you really want out of this. You may not succeed, but that doesn't mean you keep trying. You learn to play an instrument, you're not going to play the string right the first time. You learn to code a computer, you're going to mess it up. So give yourself that space to use your direct sense, testimony, and inference of past experience to today. So you can create something in this practice that's wholly yours. That's all 3 parts of that. Just as you use all parts of the bodies in the practice, all parts of yourself and your senses for you. So check in with yourselves, my friends, what you're coming into this work with, what modulations, right? What imaginations, what fear, what false evidence, or beliefs that's going to stop you from getting what you want. Instead, put yourself in the role of creator of your own world, your own genie. Whenever something comes up that isn't your experience, inference of your experience, direct cognitive experience, right? What you taste, touch, hear, see, or smell. Or testimony of your teacher or someone you trust. Set it aside. And then let those 3 run the ship for an hour or 2. And you might create or make space for yourself in something in a world that's wholly different. And your own inner genie grants your wish of something that you might want. Bring your palms together at the chest, thumbs touching the sternum. Index moves away from middle finger, pinky moves away from ring. Draw still the shoulders back, backward ribs in, side rib forward, front rib up. Take a nice deep breath, long, shortly 3 times and start. Flex your feet. Back rib in, side rib forward, front rib up. Let the feeling of that change your tone. Bow your head. Soak the essence of yoga inside yourself. Bring your hands into your lap. Let your head rise and your eyes open. Great. So nice to see everybody. All right, cool. So before we really get trucking, I was sharing with Tristan before all this started that teaching online is incredibly difficult for me. A lot of what gives me a lot of the energy in teaching is feedback from all of you, not just verbal feedback, but being in your presence in the room, all of us sharing this together. Yoga is the community that never turned on me, I should say. Like I've had, experiences in the military, some assholes, right? Experiences in the workplace, assholes. I'm sure there's some assholes in yoga, but everybody is at least working on their own thing. So I appreciate everyone sharing your time here, difficult as it is for all of us. But what I am using, instead of all of you spurring me forward, is remembering that even if I didn't have any students, I'm still teaching myself to try and build up some level of energy to keep going, right? That's fine. Yeah. So might also take a moment, recognize where in your life, you're not getting the feedback from somewhere else, but can you create in your own sense, your own internal battery, so you're not reliant just on others. But if you get to be with others or get that from others or some place that you can't go right now, it'd be a joy. So we do what we can. All right, stand up, let's do some work. All that aside, I almost got into a whole other spiel there. It's very dangerous when I start talking again. You need like one of those shock collars on me. So like when I'm getting too much pontificating, like, no, pose time. No? That's fine. All right, stand wide on your yoga mats, 3.5 to 4. No, I do not want you to unmute. It's fine. You need to stay muted so there's not reverb. Thank you for asking though. So stand wide on your yoga mat, 3.5 to 4 foot apart. We're gonna take a look at standing poses and the lift of the spine. I know we're all still sitting around at home and it's really hard. So we're gonna modify some poses. We'll warm the body up. So again, if you get lost, just watch Tristan, you'll get caught back up like I do in every class. So standing 3.5 to 4 foot apart. We're going right past Tadasana for a moment. We'll come back to it. But standing with your feet wide, check your feet to make sure both are pointing forward, because one foot may be turned out more than the other, one foot may be turned in more, and try to even yourself out. Now, you also have to make sure on your yoga mat, one foot is not farther back than the other. Like Tristan's left foot is farther back than her right foot. So instead of trying to even it out using your senses that may not be sharp, right? One of the things that is a big part of the yoga practice is dhyana, or sharpness, right? None of us are sharp. We're all novices for the first 20 years. I'm getting on to year 17, so I still don't know what I'm talking about. So instead of just relying on the thing that we are assuming is right, measure it. So use the edge of your mat as your testimonial teacher. Move your heel to the back edge of your mat so your heels are touching the edge of it equally. You feel the flesh of the heel touch that edge of the mat. And it may feel weird in the pelvis because now you're using something to guide you, right? That's testimony. It doesn't just need to be a teacher. One of my teachers would often say, the best yoga teacher is the prop, because the prop's not going to lie to you. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care except the fact that are you straight or, squared or curved correctly. Check your toes. Once you moved your heels back, turn your toes in correctly, one foot into the other. Pivot on your left heel and turn your left toes out to the side. Now, you've got that back edge of the mat to kind of guide you. Did your pelvis come off of the same line as that edge of that mat? When you turned your left heel out, that mat stayed straight, but did your pelvis twist? So if you have to turn your toes in, that's fine. Push through that left heel, keep your pelvis in the line of the mat, and then turn your heel and thigh out. Yeah. So active in it. You're engaging your senses even into the most basic movement you do, because right, you don't try to put a puzzle together all at once. You do it in small pieces, right? You find the corners and you start to fill in the corners, and then you start to piece by piece fill it in the center. You don't try to start in the center on the way out, or at least I wasn't taught to. That's madness. Arms wide. Look at your hands in relationship to the back edge of your mat. Right hand to and almost the right heel. Left hand to the left heel and the edge of the mat. Can you line those up? So the center of your palm lines up kind of in line with the center of your heels. So you start developing a sensory relationship, cognitive relationship to where parts of your bodies are with each other. That's why you see very long time practitioners of this work do this so fluidly, is because they've slowed it down and done it so much that they know where their body is in space. Not just muscularly having the confidence in their strength or flexibility, but where their pinky finger is and why it's not straight off to the side like all of yours is. Bring your four fingers together. Yeah, I saw all of them, trust me. Curl your thumb into your palm, pushing the inner side of your thumbnail into the center of the palm, and the whole length of it, and pinch it so you get that forearm flex. Good. Can you push your big toes down into the mat, just like you're curling your thumb into the palm with the same strength, so you feel your calf flex? Huh. There is some correlation between the big toe, the fingers and toes, right? Even if you don't believe it, some of us might believe, or science tells us, we're evolved for monkeys. My hands are like my feet. So curl the thumb into the palm, push the big toe down into the mat. Don't curl the big toe, but try to flatten it like you were going to drag the mat towards the foot. So your calf flexes, just as your forearm flexes. So now, can you flex your thigh muscle and push them into the bones equally? Can you flex your biceps and push them into the bone equally, so your shoulders drop? So your shoulders relax and open, just as when you flexed your thighs, your hips opened a little bit. So right now we're working from the outside in to the center line. Bend the left knee. When you bend that left knee into Virabhadrasana 2, check your ribs. Did one side of the ribs tilt away from the back edge of the mat? Did one set of ribs lean towards one thigh or the other? And notice if they did, feel the difference in, like, the way the ribs press onto the flesh of the side body, or the way maybe your ribs will press into the fabric of your shirt, or how one shoulder gets tight all of a sudden and the other one stays loose. And then go back through your hands, go back through your feet, check in your hands and your feet to make sure they're still in line. One hand didn't come forward, one hand didn't go back. And then stretch that thigh out. Check in with yourself. Check in with your cognitive sense. Check in with the testimony of your teacher, which, I'm not there, but I'm yelling. Check in with your mat teacher. And then check in with your inference. Some of you have done yoga for a while. What's your Warrior 2 experience like? Past, present. Don't worry about the future. Take a breath. And then feel how hard, when you do all of that, there's an energy that is fatiguing that happens. It's not just your thigh now, it's all over your body. Straighten your leg. Turn your toes in. That's your nervous system actually getting into the work on a greater degree. Just as, like, when we stretch our brains when we read or listen to music or things like that, yoga changes our nervous system. Left toes in, turn the right toes out. When you twisted, did your hips go off the back line of the teacher? The testimonial teacher, right? That's your back line right now. I like that term, the testimonial teacher. I need to remember that. No one answers good. Right? This is the other bad problem, like bad jokes and no one laughs anymore. Don't. Check in with your heels. Arms out.
Using my senses.
Yeah. Good. Check in with the hands. Are they in line with the heels? Because you're building off of the line, even though the hands aren't touching mat, the heels are, and you can feel where your hands are in relationship to your foot, right? Use what you got. Then press the thumb into the palm, press the big toe into the floor, keep those big toes pressed down, keep those thumbs pressed in. Thighs back, biceps into the muscle and the bone. Tricep up into the bone. Bend the right knee. And when you bend the knee and you go into the full depth of the pose, whatever that might be by the bend of your knee, check in with the teacher that you can feel, the teacher that's closest to your cognitive sense. That's the yoga mat right now. So that when you press your heels into that mat, then you can feel where your hands are in relationship to your foot. Press your thumbs into your palm to remind you to press your big toe into the floor. Stretch your legs out, stretch your arms out. And then where did your rib cage and hips go? Does the fabric of your shirt feel like it's pulled or you're pressing or leaning into it more, one side to the other? If you're not wearing a shirt, body, I don't know. You're gonna have to really work harder. Ribs back. Take a few breaths into it. Feel the shake that comes up, not just physically, but the mental work that it takes because you're processing all of this information that your body's going through. Your experience from trying your warrior two in the past, and your cognitive recognition of it now, what your skin's feeling, what you're seeing in yourself, what you're hearing, the noises of your body make, whether creaking or cramping or internal groaning and moaning. I don't know what taste has got for you or smell, but you do what you got. And then check in with that teacher, not just the teacher that's watching you, because I see you, but the yoga mat. Straighten those elbows. Take a breath. Let it all process. So when you take that breath in, it allows the information to process, allows your nervous system to kind of clean out. Straighten your leg, turn your toes in. Oh, God, warrior two is hard as hell. If you approach every yoga pose with that kind of focus, it's very hard to do, but that's the tempering that is talked about a lot in many of the philosophy books. Turn your left toes out. Let's keep tempering. That's that heat or that tapas. Check your heels on your mat. When we turn the foot out, it can kind of stray off. So you got to check the flush of your foot against the line of your mat. Turn your left foot out. Did your pelvis go off with the foot? Did you lose the line on the backside? Arms out, thumb into palm, big toe into floor, thigh into bone, thigh muscle to bone, bicep, tricep to bone. Bend the left knee, check in with all of it. Good, you get that really focused yogi face, right? That some teachers have that when they do poses, they look at you like there's no shake. Stretch your upper body out over your left leg as far as you can go. And there will be a slight pelvic shift, but don't make that shift happen because your left knee is straightening. Shift your left pelvis over your left thigh. Let your right hip roll up over the left thigh. Then take your left hand to the floor on the outside of your foot. If you need a yoga block, feel free to grab it because you know you're going to be here a while. So if you're like, oh, I can hold this for a little bit, I'm going to hold you here a little bit plus 3 minutes. And even though, you could drop out like Stacy and Scott there running off. Yeah, I see you too. Put yourself into the work, right? You want something different? You got to put the time in. Look, good, Tristan, got the block. Bend the knee, get into the pose, arms out. All right, stretch out over, hand on the block. Don't rush. They can wait. So with your left hand on the block, push the left leg into the arm. And when you did this, just to help engage that inner thigh open, we've worked on this in the past, did your left hip push harder back behind you? Can you keep your pelvis more or less in line with the edge of the mat and the heels? Use the feeling of the edge of the mat on the heel to line up your hips, to line up your ribs. You okay now? You good? Okay, for sure. Take your left hand, or right hand, excuse me, your left hand's on the block. Take your right hand and place it on your right lower back, just to the side of the spine. So your fingers brush the top of your buttock. push your hand into your back hard, and then push both hand into back and back into hand. So you get that lift. Now you feel that right side actually engaged to stay lifted. So you feel the right side active. Can you stretch your left side body equal to your right? Can you engage both sides in the same level of activity? Now, even though the left side doesn't have something to push into, we'll try it here in a minute. Can you teach it? Because the right side's got the teaching of the hand right now. Right? So you're really starting to feel what it is to flex these muscles without force. Now, even though your thumb's not in your palm, can you still press your big toe into the floor like the thumb in the palm? Those of you who were here in the past classes, weeks ago now, we talked about the 4 quadrants of the leg, how to press through the big toe, pinky toe joint, center of heel. Bring it all back in. It's all testimony of the teacher. Ribs back into the hand into the back, make the left side do the same. So that even though you may not feel like you twist as much, but what you are doing is keeping your spine level from the low back to the upper back. So now any twisting that happens comes from both legs and the pelvis moving at the same time. So Tristan's gonna push her left knee in her arm. I want you to all do the same. Suck your left buttock towards the camera, or towards the world in front of you. Flex that glute. Are you working your back equal on each side now? Check back in with everything. Every time you add something, check back in with everything else. Great. So keep that right side body. Slide your right hand, this is going to be a shoulder stretch, to the left side of your back now. Yeah, behind you. You may not get the palm, you can use the back of your hand. Push the back of your hand into the back, or whatever part of your hand, and then push that into the hand. And now do the same thing on your right side, even though there's no hand there. It got the teaching, it has to practice. Big toes down. Lengthen both sides of your body long, since both sides are now active. And then when you feel like you've got it all together, stretch your arms straight out in front of you. Thumb into palm. Swing the arm overhead. And notice how your right side went longer than your left side. Almost instantly, the back muscles lost it. Take a breath. Exhale, bring your arm up. Bring your body out of the pose without straightening your leg. Good. Turning your toes in, put your block on the other side, turning your toes out. So you might have noticed as these classes go, turn your right toes out. I take a lot of the Yoga Sutra and put it in each lesson. If you've ever read the Yoga Sutra, it's just basic without anything but the translation, or Sanskrit if you read that. It's like a page and a half. It's very little material. Like the days was 4 or 5 words. But if you really start thinking about how all this stuff applies in your practice, it becomes very big, very fast. That's why all the books you can buy on it are sometimes 200-300 page books for a page and a half of starting material. Turn the right toes out, check your lines, testimony of the teacher, arms out. Check in with your hands like your heels. Use the feeling of the heels and the foot on the line to guide your hands front to back. Thumb into palm, big toe down into the mat. Bend the right knee. Check in with your body. Check in with the length of your rib cage. Here you feel the ribs are nice and long, so this pose is teaching you something to the next pose, right? Stretch out over that right leg, lengthen that leg. Let the right hip roll, the right side of the pelvis roll on the left hip onto the right hip. Let the left hip roll onto the right side of the pelvis. Once you've gone long, take your hand to the block. Keep that length. In the moment your hand hits the block, notice how much what wants to quit, right? What's not willing to continue working in face of ease. Take your left hand to your low back. And again, push the hand into the back, back into the hand. Really engage both of those halves. Even though your thumb's not in your palm, your toe should still be in the floor. Right? Using yourself to teach yourself something. That's good experience. That's experimentation. Very important in the yoga practice. That you experiment and get experience from what you can do with your body and how to do it in a way that is beneficial to you. And I promise you, your experience turns into something that will inspire and help others. All right. So left ribs into hand, hands into the, or back, left back into hand, hand into the back. Can you do the same thing on the right side, even though there's no hand there? So your chest opens. Can you lengthen the right side of your body equal to the left? Feel how when you try to do that, the back wants to come off the hand. And now take a breath. Take your hand onto the left or the right side of the back, right side of the spine. Don't push into the spine itself, but the back muscle itself, the QL, quadratus lumborum. Push your back into that and your hand into that. Now feel what both sides being active with the hand are like, or have been, are like with a hand pressing on them. And can you make your left do the same as your right, even though it doesn't have the hand there? Keep it, flex that right buttock into the pose, push that right knee into the arm. Don't straighten the leg to do so. That's not your buttock doing it, that's your low back. Your legs were set. Notice how much just even flexing your glute makes your body want to get out of the work, right? Temper it. Stretch your, when you feel like your side body is long, both sides of your back are engaged from the hand into the back into the hand, stretch the left arm out, and then sweep the arm overhead, full extension. And even there, when you get that arm up, what wants to quit? Can you bring it back in? Invite yourself to get back into the full experience. That's why I say I'm happy for you when you get a cramp, right? You're getting the full experience. Take a few breaths. Okay, take your arm up. Bring your body up, keeping the knee bent. Straighten the leg, turn the toes in. Bring your arms down for a second. Set your feet correct on your mat, and then feel what happens. Just take a second there. Don't dance around. Don't wander off, but still be present in the after effect of your body. Right? You heat up metal, you hammer it, it comes out stronger. Did you? Pivot on your left heel, turn your toes out. You will need your block, so move your block with your foot. Did your pelvis go offline when you turned your thigh up? Probably a little bit. Mine does all the time, but that's right. That's why I like to say I've got a couple of years left to really get it together. Bend the left knee, arms out. So what is considered like very basic practice and sequencing, you know, warrior two to side angle to triangle, is considered in the yoga world very basic, like taught in level 1. But this work takes you a little deeper when you start actually applying the thoughts that the philosophy can provoke or invoke or encourage, define it however you like. It changes it. It goes a little deeper. At least I think so. My testimony, though, very different. All right, start with the knee bent for a moment. Set your pelvis, set your arms. Feel the strength of your left leg right now. So feel how flexed the left thigh has to be to hold this. Keep that flex when you straighten the leg. Can you keep that quad, that calf, and that hamstring, that flex? Now stretch out over the left leg. Keep the flex. Shift, use the strength of the leg to move the pelvis to the left. Not just back, it will happen a little bit, right? You cannot squeeze the pelvis between two panes of glass. That's ridiculous. Shift your pelvis to the left to the right. Stretch your upper body long, checking with both sides of your body. They were equal when you were upright. Can you try and create some balance here? Simultaneously, take one hand down, the other up. Yeah, because the arms aren't going to hold you up. The legs to the body are going to hold you up. The limbs are support. The limbs are there, great. You know, and I know I said limbs for tree metaphor, but don't spread your branches. Prune it. 4 fingers tight, thumb in the palm. Is your left quad still engaged like it was in Warrior 2? Made a bad joke, so probably not. Bend the left knee. So side angle for a moment. Now keep that flex. Stretch your ribs long. You've already got the pieces of this pose. Take your right hand to your low back. On the right side, right hand to the low back, right side. Push the hand into the back, back into your hand. Get that side active. Open it. Take a breath. Move your right hand to the left side of your back. Push your back into that, hand into that. Keep that left quad flex, keep that openness, work both sides of the back equally. If you really want to try, you got long fingers like me, you can put a thumb and a finger on each side of your spine and push your back into those touches. It's not about the pressure, it's the feeling. Go to less of a forceful teacher, the whole hand, go to the tips of the fingers, right? You learn to ride a bike, you get the training wheels, and you start to take them off a little bit. You have 1 training wheel. No. All right. When you've got it, take the arm back up. Keep your back, keep your legs, take your arm back up. Re-lengthen the left leg. Keep that flex and just make it shift the pelvis so the whole upper body stays in that long open action. How's that feel? Feel the difference? What's the difference? Her inner thigh isn't pinging at her. She has had an inner thigh to muscle injury for a while, so this has released it. Good. All right. Well, we're not done. Oh, sad for us. Now, remember, pressing your big toe down into the floor is helps your leg and foot engage. Look at your left index finger on the block. There's the large knuckle. There's the second knuckle of the index finger. Don't look at the camera. Don't worry. If you look at your hand and start at the palm, the first large knuckle is knuckle 1. Knuckle 2 is in the middle of the finger. Knuckle 3 is just near the fingertip or the nail. The bone, push the bone between the first and second knuckle as flat as you can. Not the knuckles themselves, but you're trying to flatten the bone, just like on the big toe, down into that block. That will help release your neck. Just like pushing your big toe down releases your knee, pushing your index finger down into the block releases your neck. Huh? Isn't that fascinating, huh? Is it true for you? Okay, cool. Now, remember where your right hand is. Don't let your brain spread out. Pull them in. Prune it. 4 fingers tight together, thumb in the palm. Left index finger pushes down. Check in here. Bend your right elbow. Take your hand on your lower back on the right side. Push your hand into your back, back into your hand. Open up. Take a couple breaths. Stop trying to breathe like you're breathing for somebody else. Slow your breath down. Move your right hand to the left lower back. Push any part of it into the back, any part of that into the hand. Recheck your left index finger, your left big toe, your right big toe. And now turn the head to look straight out, not down at the block, but straight out. And because now your side ribs are laterally engaged, can you lengthen each side of your neck out? And when the fear starts to come up, oh God, my neck, check in with your heels. Are your heels on line with the mat? Sure. Are your hips on line with your heels? Sure. Are your shoulders and ribs in line with the hips? Awesome. So now transfer that thought up into your neck and start to kind of feel it. So as the teacher for Tristan, there you go. Lift your head up an inch. I'm going to tell her to lift her head, not the top of it, but the center at the jawline up. Right there. And back. Tristan, your head. Watch. This is your hair. Tilt it this way. Just like. There you go, right there. So can you take that feeling up? I know the neck is scary sometimes and it gets achy, but unless you start moving it, you're not going to get any better, right? Anytime our neck tells us it's something's wrong because it's hurting, we tell it to shut up with Advil. Trust me, it's good. Use it. But you got to start taking time when it doesn't hurt to kind of experimenting and figuring out what's going on so it doesn't have to tell you it's hurting. Check your neck. Nope, your face needs to turn towards me. There it is. Get down here. Right arm up. Feel the shakiness, whether it's in your legs, mental, emotional, whatever's going on. Take a breath. Bend the left knee. Reflex your thigh. Lengthen the leg one more time. Stretch your ribs long, back muscles. And now pick yourself up out of the pose. Very good. I had you bend the knee to re-engage your leg because I didn't want anyone to just push up on a locked knee and break the good habit. So it's okay to kind of re-engage into the whole pose for like a split second before you come out, so you come out in a good way. And bring your arms down. You okay? Good. Turn your left toes in, turn your right toes out. Move your block. Arms out, bend the knee. Check in with the lines. You can infer from the last time we did this, just a moment ago on the other side of the body, what's going to happen. But don't let inference create anticipation. Anticipation create fear or cockiness, right? That was my big one. Oh, I know what the teacher's going to do. I've seen those props before. Still do it. That's my inference turning to cockiness. But let it be something to guide you so you know that you're on the right track. And if you had something happen in the other side that wasn't great, like your knee was getting irritated, things that weren't positive for you were happening, use your experience from that side to kind of how we can modify, push a little more, work back off a little bit so you get something better out of this. Yap, 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 Dustin. Stretch your right side out over the right leg. Take your right hand to the block when you've shifted your pelvis. Is your spine long? Both sides of your ribs long? Take your right hand to the block. Take your left arm up simultaneously. Great. And then lengthen the right leg. Go to triangle. But keep the flex of that right quad the whole time. That right hamstring the whole time. Don't just straighten the knee because it's fast, because you're here for speed. As you can tell, we're 42 minutes, 43 minutes into this jazz, and we're, what, 3-4 poses in? I am not here for speed. If you're here, if you want speed, go to the YouTube after this is up and then hit the fast forward button and try to follow. Bend the right knee. Take the left hand to your low back. On the left side, push your hand into your back into your hand. So I know I'm doing it different order, but this is what over inference does to you, makes you cocky. When the teacher does something in a slightly different order and catches you up. Good. Life should always throw you kind of like small, easy curveballs like that to keep you sharp. So now that your right leg and your back are engaged, notice what happens when you press your right index finger between the first large knuckle and the second knuckle. Push that bone to the inside of it, near the middle finger and the outside, the thumb side, down as firm as you can. And work your back at the same time, so you free up your neck on both things that are touching the floor, the side of the leg and the arm, right? Now move your hand to the other side of your back, so left hand to right side of your back. Push the back into your hand into your back. Open the body. Take a breath. Straighten the right leg again, lengthen it, let it shift the pelvis, but don't let it collapse your spine. Don't let it change your neck because your fingers there are opening. So try to notice the tendency to work your neck and shoulders if your leg's tight. Is your big toe pushing down like the right index finger? I say no. Mine's not. Now that your ribs are equal, yeah? Can you make your head equal? What's the relationship of the right side of your neck to the left? And does it have some of the same qualities of your left and right side of your rib cage? Better, much better. So you got to start experimenting. So you're looking straight out. Don't even turn your eyes down or up. Try to look your eyes towards the same direction as your nose points, because that's a sensory thing, right? What was the first of the three things that create knowledge. Senses. So if your eyes are wandering, part of you's wandering. Keep the back, stretch the arm up. Prune your tree by pulling your fingers tight, thumb into the palm. Flex that right buttock. How much did your back try to do? How much did you lose in your back and neck? Re-engage it. Take a nice deep breath, bend the right knee. Work the quad deeper, work your ribs, work all of it at once. Try to bring all of yourself into it without your neck. Your neck's neutral. Don't crunch to flex. I may have you come out of this differently, you don't know. Lengthen your right leg. Take a breath. Strong leg, keep it strong. Bring the body up. Great, arms down, turn your toes in. Grab your chair. You're going to take your chair, and even if you have a chair that's just like a low stool, it'll be fine, or a high stool. I would prefer you have something with some height to it. So open the chair up, let's see, put your seat of the chair that way. So you're going to have your chair or a stool with whatever facing you, and the seat of the chair facing away from you. If you have a tall stool, that'll be fine. If you're using a short stool, it's okay to put blocks on it so your hands are a little higher. I prefer some level of height. So as you can see, the top of the chair is about in line with Tristan's hips. So I'm going to have Tristan step away from the chair, turn and face it. She's going to lean forward and put both hands on the chair. Watch her for a second, and then you can do the pose. So this is not real complex, but we are complex. So Tristan's going to step her feet back and her stretch her hips back so her chest is in line with her hands as best she can, and hips with her heels, hips with her hands. So if she looks at her feet, hold on, I want to give you the lesson here. If she looks at her feet and she can trace the leg of her lines up to her hips, she can look and actively see, are my heels, knees, and hips in line with each other? Now they are, good. Then she can look at her hands. Are her hands lower or higher than her shoulders? Right? So use your senses to get to create the alignment. We're going for that, those connected lines. And then she has to infer where her hips are, because if her hips, she looked at her legs, she knows her hips are in with her heels. She looks at her hands, she knows where her shoulders are and her hips. So that's the inference point. So everyone join her. 2 seconds to get you there. Hands on the stool or back of the bar. You want something fairly tall if you can. So if you're using a really low chair, it's okay to put blocks on it. But as you see, even though the chair is a little lower than Tristan's hips, it's okay. We do what we can. I mean, you can use the back of your couch. This is great back of the couch work. No, why don't you do the pose? So now Tristan shifted and she leaned her hips back from her heels. So she's got to walk her feet back. So check in with yourself. What can we use to check in with herself? If you have your yoga mat, you can put your heels on your yoga mat. Oh, every pose teaches us how to prop with another pose even. Sorry. Great. So from here, look at your hands to your shoulders. Are they in a line? Great. Don't let your shoulders go lower than your hands. If you can, if that's your hypermobility. If you're not there, don't worry. You will go down as this pose goes on and you practice more. Check in with your body. Are your heels and hips in line with each other? Or are you leaning back into your knee? Because your knee should not line up with your heel. Your knee is slightly forward of your heel. There you go. Feel the difference? Look at your hands. Are your hands in line with your shoulders? Bring them up a little. Curl your knuckles over the bar of the chair. So you're not letting your wrist hang down towards the seat of the chair, but you're rolling your knuckles over so the top and bottom side of your arm are flexed, just like the front and back side of your leg must be flexed. And just open your chest, not by pushing your shoulders down, but by lifting your shoulders up so your chest bone can drop and elongate. So any descent that happens here happens in your upper back. I didn't say where your upper back was in this. I said where your shoulders, hips, hands, feet are. Everything else does the work. So can you keep your shoulders lifted so they're aligned with your palms, but stretch your chest bone down? Can you elongate each side of your rib cage, left and right, from the hip out to the armpit down, and then from the front and back? Because you can stretch the back of your ribs towards your shoulders. It makes it round. It opens it. Ready for the fun part? Yay! Take your right hand, and if you can, you might need your yoga strap around your foot. Take your right hand down and grab your left big toe. Try and then check in with your body. Where did my legs go? Are they still in line with the heels? Where did my left shoulder go? Did it crush down to the floor? Can you relift it by pushing your hand into that bar? And just even holding that, just take very deep breaths into that action. Push your big toe down into the floor, even though it's trying to lift it because there's a finger under it, doesn't mean that part of the leg gives up. Even your right hand, even though the hand is partial, the fingers are under the toe, put your thumb in your palm. Not just your index finger. I just said part of it. So as you push the big toe down into the index middle finger, curl your thumb into your palm. And then check your left shoulder, right shoulder. Use your eyes, get your visual senses in, because I know some people like to close their eyes in yoga class. I think that's a disservice to yourself. You're cutting off one of your 5, right? You've got all your facilities. Use all of your facilities. Right? And even if you don't, like, you know, you've had accidents, injuries, born with issues like I am, use everything you got. It doesn't mean you're going to get any less. You might discover something that others don't get. Right? No one is disabled. We are all differently able. Lift the chest out. Are you stretching the right and left side equal in length? So the left arm's up on the chair, but is the right side of your body equal to the left side, or did it crunch to reach down? And if you can't grab your big toe and keep your leg straight, use a strap under your foot. I'll wait. We got a whole hour and 7 minutes still. Tristan don't want to wait that long. Roll the left knuckles over the chair. Don't let your wrist collapse. Whew. So all this stuff checks in. And then notice what you're doing with your head. Even though the right arm is towards the floor, Tristan's turning your head to the right. So look neutral. And can you lengthen your neck equally on each side? So you can create a continuous line of action from the tips of your toes to the crown of your head. Lift the head slightly, so you're not crushing down. Don't shrink the back of your neck, though. The front of your throat is long, the back of your neck is long. But lift the head up, so the upper back has to do the work. Whew, how's that feel? So it's not your face tilting up, it's your face level at the floor and the head lifting. Like if I took my palm into your face and pushed it up. Take a breath. Take your right hand back up onto the chair as you exhale. Roll the knuckles, reset. Don't worry about it. Just don't mess with it. Take your left hand down to the right big toe. Pull up with the index middle finger, stretch the chest, push your right big toe back down into the fingers. Use your eyes first. Check in. Where are your legs to your hips? Are your hips over your heels? Is your shoulder in line with your hand? Look at it. Don't just assume. Always take every moment to check in, right? We've all had things we felt or had come up in our body, you know, that may not have been true, right? So use your sight to check in with yourself. Roll the right knuckle. Don't lean your hips back. Keep your hips over your heels. Keep each side of the foot active. Stretch each side of your rib cage long. And then check in with your neck. Is each side of your neck equal in length? And are you tucking your head down to try and make your shoulder work? Can you lift your head up, not turning your face one direction, but from the front of the face to the back of the face? Pick your core up so you're stretching the front side, back side of your body. Now stretch it long and up. There you go, holding onto that big toe the whole time. And just breathe deep. And the deeper you breathe, feel how that changes the back body. Take your experience from just surface feeling muscle stretch to how the breath affects it, right? We get into pranayama later. You've got to be aware of it on that subtle level. And if you can feel your breath and make it something better, more smooth, easier, you know, use what adjective you ever want to describe it. Can you make it what you need in the midst of all this very, very active practice? Because then when you lay down and do it, you know, makes it easier. At least makes it so you know, feeling for something. Take both hands up on the chair. That's a lot. So bend your knees a little. Actually, bend your knees a lot, shifting both hips back. Try to keep your hands on your seat. Even if you tilt your chair or your bench, that's okay. Set your hips back down, belly to thigh, ribs to thigh. Bend your knees deep. It's Uttanasana. So really don't cheat yourself. Now, even though your feet may be a little bit apart, squeeze your thighs together, shift your hips back. Can you line up your knees with your heels? Push your hands into the bar and lift your shoulders. So your arms are active even before you start to get the body. So now your legs and arms are active. Can you make the middle part of your body, the core, front and side ribs, do the same thing your limbs are? So you're taking a small part of the body to teach a bigger part of the body, right? Bite-sized lessons. Take your hands off the chair, float an inch up off your chair. Woo! Take your body up by tucking the buttocks under so you're hinging on the pelvis to bring your spine up. Arms go with the rest of the core. It's all connected. Take a breath. Can you lengthen your neck? Front, back, left, right. Exhale, stand on up. Ooh, take a second. And then we will take a second, feel your body, go to Tadasana for a moment. Check in with your body, see how it feels. Don't dance or move around. Don't get distracted by your house unless it's an emergency, something's needed. Tadasana. Check in with yourself, get yourself right, develop the experience, the relationship with learning from yourself, right? I know self-talk, the false belief in a false piece of information, right? The negative things we say about ourselves will often be the thing we want to go to, right? That was called one of the modulations of the mind, was that false belief. This is something else. Take a nice deep breath, fold forward, take both hands onto the bar of the chair again. Stretch the hips back, shoulders aligned with wrist, heels in line with hips. Your knee should not be in line with your heel. So Tristan needs to lean forward. More. And bend your knees. Thank you, not that much. Soft knee joints. Straighten them. More, lengthen them, right there. So now, you're much taller than you thought. Take a breath, hips in line with heels, not back. Visually check yourself. If your knees are working back harder than your thighs, your hips are not going to be in place. You should feel like your legs have to actively work to hold you up in this, because they should. Teaching your legs to actively work in this by leaning forward just a hair to really line your hips with your heels is going to make your legs get very tired. Your core will get very tired doing this. Interesting. Because what's going to happen is you're starting to develop that engagement instead of disengagement. Roll the knuckles. Look at the hands to the shoulder. Are they the same height? Then go to the feeling. Are your shoulders kind of hanging down on gravity like your hands want to on the chair, or are they both kind of lifting? Almost like you're going to pick the chair up off of the floor. Don't pick your chair up off of the floor if some of you are like super gymnast about this. Stretch the front and back side of your spine out. Take a deep breath and pick your right knee up to your chest. Did you lean your hips back? Did your chair tilt? Did your right knee fall off to the side? Your shoulders drop. Take a minute and reset everything. Put your foot on the floor. Reset your thighs, reset your arms, reset your hips, and then keep as much of that stable. And this is going to tell you when something's not working. When you pick the right knee up, the part of your bodies that fall out probably weren't fully engaged. So don't round your back, Tristan. There you go. Lengthen your heart out. Exhale. Pick your right thigh up like you're going to touch your right knee to your heart or the center of your chest bone. Let's not say that. It might be one of the harder standing poses. The more you can pick that quad up, the more you're going to work the strength of the leg. But notice how what comes up with it. Did your chest come up? Did your shoulders come up? Is your chest moving away from your leg like it doesn't want to touch it? Bring your heart down. Remember, arms stay lifted, heart comes down, not your head. Pick your head up, move your chest bone down. Right knee should be up in the air, Micah. Pull your right knee to your thigh. Everybody relax your right knee. Keep it in the air, but just let your right shin bone hang directly down from it. All right, right foot on the floor. Woo. Arms long. Reset yourself. Lengthen the heart. The arms lift. Don't pick up the middle of your back. Let your spine lengthen forward and down some on this, Tristan. Middle of the back down. There you go. Don't push your head down to pull your spine down. Pick your head up. Let the front of your spine come down. All right, check in with your body. Are you ready to go? You balanced? Pick your left knee up to your chest bone. Check in with what overcompensated for that happening. Did your shoulders come up too high? Did your hands lose their alignment with the shoulder? Did the shoulders to the hand? Did your right big toe stop pressing into the floor? Did you have to lock the knee? Can you take those things away so you get the experience of what you're doing? So with inference from the teacher, you can kind of pick something up new from it. Work that left quad by pulling it up as high as you can and pull your chest down to it, not your head. And then let your left knee relax so your left shin bone just hangs directly below the knee. It's hard to do because we often get locked up in the flex of the knee joint. Take a breath. Last few seconds, pull the knee up. Pull your shoulders up, bring your heart down towards the knee. Foot on the floor. Bend the knees, Uttanasana, stretch both hips back, both arms long, rolling the knuckles. Are your arms lifted the height of your shoulders, even though you're bringing the chest towards the thigh? So let the chair tilt back so you can engage your legs. When you move your knees above your heels, you will feel your legs have to flex harder. That is correct. That is true when the legs are straight as well as they're bent. Float your hands off the chair and hold. Look up. Move your wrists, shoulders, and hips all at the same time. Bring the body up. Tuck your hips. Up, 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 up. Stand on up. Arms down, go to Tadasana for a moment. Just check in with your body. What's easy, what's hard? What would you rather be doing now? Right? Is the ice cream man outside? I hope not. All right, take a nice deep breath. You're going to step your left foot forward about 3 foot over the dog, maybe a little further forward. So you're going to have to move the chair up farther because if you take both hands onto the top bar of your chair, everyone do the pose. Left foot forward, right foot back. Toes are turned slightly out on the right foot. So the right foot and left foot are not pointing in the exact same direction. The left toes are pointing directly at the chair. The right toes are pointing out towards like only the right feet of the chair. You turn the pelvis towards the chair, take both hands onto the back bar of the chair and stretch the arms out as long as you can. Slide the chair away from you if you can. So you're in the exact same upper body action, but the legs are different. Take your forearms out. If you can go down low enough that your forearms on the chair. If you can go down low enough that your shoulders in line with your, or wrists are in line with your shoulders, shoulder to wrist, and all of that to hips, great. If you can't, you go as low as you can, and then you work up, you work into it. Now, if your hands are on the grabbing the bar, that's fine. But if you see Tristan's got her forearms on the chair, and that's perfectly appropriate. I actually like to do it like this myself, so I can bring my 4 fingers together and curl my thumb into my palm. Because I like to have as intensive practice with this as I like to give you. Roll the right hip into it. By rolling the right hip towards the chair, move the left hip away from the chair. Now, check in with yourself. If you look back at your hips, if you see your kind of right hip is too low, I mean, literally look at your thigh. And if your thigh is in and your knee is locked, lift your right hip up so it's equal to the left. Feel it. And just for a moment of experimentation, everyone push your right hip down really far and feel what happens to your back. Feel it up into your shoulders. Your arms aren't going to lie. They're on a level thing, I hope, unless your house is severely unlevel. And then check in with your shoulders. One way you can tell if your shoulders are right is your neck still neutral. If not, no. Now pick your right hip up too high. Don't go to full triangle, just higher than what's active. Notice how your left knee wants to bend. Even if you lengthen the left leg again, check in with your back and your groin. You'll feel it's out of whack. Other parts of your body will teach parts of your body, right? We are our own teachers. It's a practice. It's a thing that I've preached, gone on about forever. So elongate the arms away from the shoulder away from the hips, legs, move the hips away from everything else. So pick your shoulders up to draw your heart down. And notice the tendency, if someone says move your shoulders, you all move your head. You all move your neck. Let your ear be in line with the neutral bicep. Take a deep breath. Bend the left knee, bring the body up, step the left foot back into Tadasana. Take a breath, step the right foot forward on your exhale. About 3.5, 4 feet. Roll the left hip into it, take your hands onto the chair. And we're not even to the full pose. I just want you to learn to feel and be able to teach yourself where the balance of your hip is. Slide the arms out, whether sliding the chair away or the forearms on the chair as Tristan's doing. That's okay. All right. So again, left leg or right leg long, so your front leg's active. And active doesn't mean one joint. Active means the whole leg. So can you push your big toe down the center heel, the pinky toe joint to engage your calf and quad. And then check in with your left hip. Put it where you think level is. Play the game, right? I'm not there to move your pelvis or to put a block on it or to do all that other stuff. You've got to kind of play it out yourself. So now roll your left hip lower than what you think is level. Check in what happened to your neck, your shoulders, and your groin. It grips, doesn't it? From one spot all the way up the length of it. So then roll your hip way too high and check in with what happened to the other side. Learn what you're going through in this process. Don't just ask for what is exactly right, because exactly right changes day to day. Ask for what I need to know, be able to learn what is right for me now. Right? It's the old biblical story, give a man a fish to eat for the day, teach a man to fish, he eats his lifetime. Eats his whole life, I think it's the term. So you know what's too high, you know what's too low. Now use the feeling of your shoulder in line with your wrist, in line with your hips. Roll your left hip front to back a little bit and try to find level. So you feel the engagement of the legs, the opening of the release of the shoulder and neck. Elongate the heart out and down, but the shoulders are lifted and active. Take a few breaths. And you'll feel your legs work when you're at the balance point in your pelvis where your low back gets to release. It may stretch, and your hamstrings may stretch and scream, but your leg muscles will engage and fatigue because they are working to stabilize the parts that they need to, which is your pelvis, to help your lower back elongate instead of stay grip. Take a nice deep breath. Take another one. That was kind of small. Bend the right knee. Bring your body up. Good. Step back into Tadasana for a moment. Arms alongside your body, Tadasana. And even here in Tadasana, what's happened for your left and right side of your body? Not just go to physical senses now. Check your sense of sight. Do your eyes want to dart and stray across the room? Does the weight of your foot on the floor feel equal? And inside your mouth, are you gripping one side of the teeth more than the other? Go through. Use your senses. Take in the experience of both sides. Whether it was a great experience for you, best yoga pose ever, or oh my God, has he gone mad from being locked inside? All right. And figure out if it's what you need. And then, check in with your own inner teacher. Are your heels still on the yoga mat? Let your senses be teachers like that. All right, step your right foot up to the chair, 3.5 to 4 feet, same distance as last time. Both hands on the top bar. Fold forward, both legs long. Both legs long, so that means straight for those of you that really have to have an angled answer to a round bone. The knee or a round joint, long leg. Check your hip too low, check your hip too high, find the middle. Start to find what makes your legs work. A teacher comes by and pulls your hips into place, may not be perfectly balanced for you. They don't have X-ray vision. I don't have X-ray vision. Stretch your arms out. Push down through the arm a little bit to let the shoulder stay lifted, but bring the chest down to bring all 3 joint sets from the hip to the arm in line. All right, here we go, fun times. Is each side of your chest the same length, right and left? Don't lift them up, but stretch forward to the back. So if you feel your right side is short, lengthen towards your armpit and your hip away from your armpit. Take your left hand to your right big toe. Pull up. Did you pick your shoulder up or your chest? Pull your whole front body up. Pull from the core to the ribs to the sternum. So now you are not just using one part like your middle shoulders, or your shoulders, neck, or back. Your neck can be neutral. Your spine, the muscles of the body are active. Is the right side and left side still equal in length? Can you make them so? And then check back in with your hip. Did it go high or did it go low? Do you not know? Roll it really low. The hip, the left hip. Feel what happens to your shoulder, neck, and ribs. Feel how all that stuff goes out of whack. Let it roll really high. Feel how what grips up, what goes in tight, and then get back to where is neutral that makes your legs work. A little lower on the left, just a little lower on the left, down, left hip, like that. Right hip back. Now re-level your chest out. Now, even though your shoulders are going to be different heights, because your front body still stretch long so it's equal. And this is going to be tight. Take a breath. Stretch your right arm out to the right side as far as you can. Fingers together, thumb into palm. Stretch your right arm to the right, it's off the chair. And now twist your right ribs to the ceiling, do a full rotate, revolve triangle. Don't lose your hips. You're going to know when they go out because the hip will go too low, right? Twist your ribs as much as you can. Bring the rib cage into long rotation. Are we aware? She's so aware she doesn't even acknowledge. Exhale, arm down. Bend the knee, body up. Woo! This is not easy. This is very much the stuff that I've been using to reset my own back and pelvis. So you really kind of check in with. Now we're getting into the point of the practice where you check in with what have I been doing to myself to make myself feel like this? Sure, we got to stay home. Some of us have to sit in front of computers for long times for work. But now with the feeling of what you've done to one side versus the other, what comes to mind that you might change at home? One thing you do during the day, or the thing you're not doing, to make it so you don't put yourself into this kind of tension, fatigue, or mental emotional space. That's yoga stretching from just the physical body to how we change the world. Empowering us with clarity and knowledge to what we want for ourselves and to get that next level of experience, right? Wouldn't it be a great experience to not be hurting tomorrow, or to make the next time you do this pose slightly less achy? Or whatever you want to get out of this, right? It has to be what you want to create. Step your left foot forward. I'm going to pontificate a lot. I know how exhausting this is. Both hands up on the top bar. Slide the arms up. Stretch the body long. Right hip, take it too low. Feel what goes wrong. All the way up your body. Don't just use the feel of the hip, right? Feelings can be misleading. Senses can be mirages. So use up the rest of your spine, your neck, and down your leg. If you roll your hip too low, what tweaks, what gets grumpy? Roll your right hip too high, what goes out of whack there? Checking what goes out of whack so you're more familiar, like later on in your life, if you're sitting tilted in a chair and your back hurts, you're like, oh, my pelvis is misaligned, right? Then roll your hip to what is level, where you feel your legs balanced and you feel like you can lengthen your spine out. Shoulders stay up by the flex of the arms, but the chest comes down. Good. Hips move back so you can lengthen both sides of your ribs and then the abdomen and rib cage. Check in with your neck. If you're starting to turn your head, if you're starting to grip on one side, you're probably doing the same thing in your back muscles, usually on the opposite side. So if your left shoulder, if you're turning your head to the left a lot, your shoulder's probably high, which means you're probably twisting your right ribs down to move your right hip. That's my experience. That's my testimony. So if you're looking too hard to your right, check in with what's going on that side of the ribs. All right, take a nice deep breath. Take your right hand down, grab your right big toe. Pull up. Don't just pull your neck up and your shoulders up. Pull your chest up, pull your core up. So your back muscles are still working to even, but when you take a deep breath into it, they widen. Then check in with your neck. If you feel like your head's being pulled one side or the other, probably overcompensating the back muscles, or there's so much tightness that just may pull that way. But then lengthen your neck out, lengthen your spine out, lengthen your ribs out. So that even though there might be that tightness there, you don't accept that as what it will always be. Push your big toe down with the hands. There you go. Always that feet. Always go to those feet. If your feet are on the earth, your legs are going to work. Take a nice breath. Stretch your left arm out to the left, stretching the arm away from the body, 4 fingers together, thumb in a palm. Turn the ribs to lift your arm up higher. And then check in with what wants to go out, what needs to flex harder. Pull up with the chest. You still got that big toe. You're holding and screaming. Take 2 breaths. Take a third one that you're actually happy doing because you're here, you're living, you're on to hour 2. 20 minutes in. Exhale. Arm down, chest down, bend the knees, stand the body up. Go back to Tadasana. Tadasana. Arms at your side. So you've had this experience now. Check in with your senses. Your experiences of your feet on the ground. You know what it's like to put the hip above the heel. You felt the thigh flex in that forward fold. So can you move your hips above your heels now so you feel those thighs have to flex the same way? If you've been in my class before and I've said move your thighs back, that's what I've been trying to teach. There you go. And then can you take a deep breath in like you took into the lungs and ribs when you were down in that fold? Can you give yourself that same level of inhale, exhale? Take a couple more breaths. Then let it become experience. Exhale. Step out of Tadasana. Take your chair, or if you're using your couch, right, you can use the seat of your couch. Turn the seat of the chair to face you. And I would grab, if you have any yoga blankets, a bolster, or blocks, and I'm going to set up Tristan. I'm going to talk you through how and why I've set her up the way she is going to be set up. So take the next minute to get blankets, any blankets you got, even pillows from your house will work, maybe even couch cushions, bolsters, yoga block, stuff like that. Take the next 60 seconds to do so. I want you to lay your back, your legs up in the chair. And first, would you actually go get the light on probably? You'll let Enzo get to his brother. Anyway. So you're going to lay, Tristan's going to lay on her back with her legs up on the chair. So just watch for a moment while I set her up, because we don't have a standardized set of props across this entire class. I'm going to teach you the why of what this setup is so that you can get the adjustment you need. So when Tristan lays down, you might notice her knees are not directly in line with her hips. There's no 90 bend here. Don't move. And her heels and knees are mostly in line with each other. So that's pretty good. Your back needs to be level towards the floor as much as we can. So Tristan needs to pick her legs up and get her knee directly above the hip and her shin in line with the heel. So for Tristan, because the chair is lower than the length of her thigh, I'm going to take a bolster to start and see if this can get the right height. So she's going to lay her calves on that. Well, now the knee is more in line with the hip, but the heels are halfway off to the moon. Too much. Take that out. And we want to put whatever you need to put if you've got a lower surface than your knee to get close to it. So that's a little closer. Better. I'm going to pull the chair close so it's directly above her kneecap. Her kneecap's above her hip. So now we're better there. But her foot's a little higher than your knee joint. What we can do to help that is to roll up the end of it, put it underneath the calf. So how's that? She likes that. See, there's a release that happens to this. So now there's that level of symmetry. If you are the person that is at home and your couch is big or your chair is taller than your thigh bone, what you need to do, I'm going to set up Tristan as that example right now with your legs. So if you're going to be in this situation where your feet are just too high, legs are too high, and you got to add height to your hips, you need to add height to your whole spine. Roll that real quick. Roll back on the bolster. Lay your bolster down, blocks down, whatever you can do to level yourself out. Build the floor up for you. So her head's hanging. Don't want that. We don't want the head higher or lower. We want neutral. Unless you have neck pain, then you can take your head out. See, here we are again. Feet, knee, knee, hip, hip to spine. How's that? Both are good. So take the next 2 minutes and get this set up. I want your knee above your hip, heel mostly in line with the knee. And if you can't because of whatever's going on, large calf muscle, whatnot, prop up that calf. Don't let this hang. Don't let your leg hang in the air. Comfy? That's good. About a minute and a half left. Get set up, get comfy for for pranayama. So with the legs in this position, what you're actually doing is setting up to release the lower part of the diaphragm near the pelvic bones. The hood of the diaphragm goes all the way to the pelvis up to the bottom ribs. We'll get into this later, just kind of fill in dead air. I sometimes say words to get from one sentence to the other. All right, last few seconds, finish your setup. All right. So laying on your back, let your arms relax. Last few seconds here. Open the eyes for a moment. Turn the eyes to the tip of the nose. Then close the eyes. You're giving focus to the senses. You're just not letting them roam around, because even though the eyes don't see, they look for things, right? All right. So when you start Ujjayi breathing is creating a sibilant S sound, and then a exhale is a H. And you do this by focusing, directing the breath that you're taking in it. It's actually minimal manipulation of your tongue. Your tongue should be resting on the bottom, the back side of the bottom palate of the tongue on the jaw. Let the tip of your tongue touch only the bottom row of teeth. So when you're breathing in, Mr. Engar says it's directing the breath, putting the breath directionally. When you breathe in Ujjayi, you're trying to pull the breath along the inner tube up to the inner corner of the eye. It'll make like a roaring S, like a tidal wave coming in. Very cool sounding if you do it right. And then when you exhale, you're directing the air from the center of the eye down the outer tubes, outer part of the tube. You're not letting, because when you suck in, if you pull it in with that directed inner, it makes the S. When you direct the breath from the center of the eye to the outer tube, it doesn't touch the inner tube as much, and it makes that drawn H. It goes from to. So work with that for a moment. That inhale, exhale. I'm having you lay in this position while you do this because it makes it easier to practice taking that deeper breath in from the diaphragm. So you can practice, can you draw that long syllable S in and let the long out? Check my notes here. So the meaning of the word Ujjayi, the prefix food means upward or expanding. It also conveys a sense of preeminence and power. I can see that, right? Get the metaphysical idea that when we take that breath in, we are taking in the most primal, basic thing we need that empowers us to live our life, right? You take that deep breath, you build up that courage, and you do the thing, right? First time I ever went like jumping off cliffs into the water, just gotta take that big breath and go. So it's an empowering thing. So upwards and expanding conveys a sense of preeminence and power. Jaya means conquest and success. In Ujjayi, the lungs are fully expanded with the chest thrust out like a mighty conqueror. Don't flex your shoulders when I said that, right? Because I understand that we all have an idea of what that means or what that looks like. I'm giving the instruction, but everybody kind of went to their own experience, right? So relax your neck and just breathe. Try to create the syllable S into the inner tube, to the inner corners of the eye near the nasal. Then when you exhale, exhale from the center of the eye out the outer tube, outer nostril. Right. So you would notice if you've done this the last couple minutes, the sense of calmness it can bring, at least for me and in my experience and what my teachers shared with me. Ujjayi breathing, because of the preeminence of its power, because it encourages a calmness, like I do not need to be calm because I'm medicated, but I am comfortable in my power, in my space. So just even here, as you create that sound, not by making a hum, not by trying to create, make a lot of noise so you feel really powerful about yourself, right? There's no one there to impress. You're not in class. Be honest with yourself. Can you make it just only with your breath through your focus to the breathing, inner nostril up to the corner of the eye, center of the eye through the outer nostril? Because if you're going to get real experience, empirical experience from this, you have to give yourself the full truth. And notice with your legs like this, it gives a lot of relaxation to the pelvis. So your breath wants to start from very low in the pelvis and abdomen and let it rise up, right? Food means to rise. So let your breath rise from the very lowest part of you, not just your back spine to the front ribs, but from the lower pelvis to the upper ribs. And can you stretch that S throughout that whole inhale, because you're directing that uplifting breath the whole time. And then when you exhale, instead of just throwing it away, can you exhale and let go of it like a precious thing that you're happy to give up, but you're just enjoying the process of giving it. Like when you give a really gift you're super excited about to someone else. You want to see their reaction. You want to hear their thoughts. Same love of giving. You receive the breath, you give it. It nourished you, it goes on to nourish the plants, which then again nourishes you. Right? It's a cycle of that. It's the whole other thing. So from the very base of the pelvis, very low, up through the stomach, up through the lungs, drawing through the inner part of the nose to the inner corner of the eye, exhaling center of the eye, the outer tube. That's a big part of Ujjayi right there. And that right there is the beginning expansions of it. Relax your palms, relax your fingers, check in with all of yourself. So that just in the asana practice, when you were cutting through all the buzz and the nervousness, and now your nervous system is worked out, your body is worked out, and you cut through all the 5 things, the 5 modifications, and now you use those 3 to build a state of focus, and you bring it into the pranayama. And don't use this as a chance to check out and take a nap, but to check in deeper, to take that dhyana, that sharpness, and go into what's in there. I found it hard to describe the long-term effects of practicing pranayama. It's been almost 17 years now, because it is such a personal thing that happens. So even as you're here, I'm guiding you through the techniques. Again, you have to have that senses sharp, experience from the last time you did it, and right, you're using the props as a teacher right now. You've got me guiding you, teaching you the techniques, and any other teachings you've had, whether it's been practice that you've had before, or work from other teachers, or anything that you can use to teach you, right? And put it all together in this. A deep breath in, slow breath out. So remember, breathe from the very lowest parts of yourselves. Whatever you consider low, breathe it high. So if you think you're breathing straight up to the ceiling, so breathe from the depth of your back to the front of your body. And think about how we often think about the lowest part of ourselves towards the groin, towards the feet. So breathe from the groin all the way up to the top of the lungs. Front to back, top to bottom. We're not adding any, right now, we're not adding any counting or retention, but we're mastering this process of such a deep focus of the inhale, exhale, that we're actually creating the sound that we're going to use to create a smoothness to it. Like a lawnmower cutting all the grass the same height in the lawn. And if you look back at the line you just cut, and there's a couple weird shoots sticking out there in your breath, you know, skip. So then you go back over it again and again and again. And so as you're breathing from the lowest pelvis up and from the back to the front, are you breathing in equally on the left and right side? When in the asana today, we engage the legs to engage left and right side equally. We engage the spine, left and right equally, the shoulder, the neck, the arm, all of it. Are your lungs taking in equally left to right side? And if not, remember what I said about your hips are going to misalign, your neck's going to feel it or notice it. You know, if your lungs aren't taking in, check your pelvis. You notice maybe now one hip is higher than the other. Can you shift and even them out? Or are you breathing equally from the lowest part of the pelvis up? So when you take a breath in, does your right abdomen lift faster and your right lung go faster than your left, vice versa? Is one nostril breathing in faster than the other? And you'll know because you'll feel that air cut across the inner nose towards the inner corner of the eye. It's one side exhaling faster than the other. So one lung depletes faster. Can you even those out? You can create that balance. And continue doing this for the next few minutes. And then I'll add another technique to it. And if you're worried that like you got disconnected or if you don't hear me talk, I'll chime in something every minute or so. But even if you got disconnected from this class, you're already in the depth of practice to such a degree that you're, you know, that's a blessed moment where your inner teacher can take over and you can keep working. Hold yourself accountable, hold yourself strong and tempered. Deep breath in, slow breath out. Keep your inner ears alert and receptive. That even though this is an inside practice, you're going to do that yourself, doesn't mean your senses are cut off. Remember, meditation is not blanking. Pranayama is a deeper level of focus, not cutting the senses. So let your inner ears Be alert and receptive, but still soft. Let the tongue stay touching the back row of your bottom teeth. And on your next inhale, take your breath just slightly in a little longer. Explore something now that is outside of what your rhythm and comfort has been. I've heard it said, you know, there's always these opportunities. We just have to learn to take them. Well, we have to learn to see them. One of the most simplest ones, I think, is the awareness that we could take a little deeper breath. We could take in that little bit more that we need, or we can get energy from, right? We can ood, we can rise up and continue a little farther. When you exhale, are you pressing down in any way like you were trying to squeeze air out of a bag? Let your exhale go without pressure. Recognize the process of letting go is natural, and that for me, it was fear of things being taken away from me that made it actually hard to let go of my breath. I had to force it out, forced to give it up, because my nature or my experience had taught me to hold on to everything so precious. So when you exhale, if you're not completely exhaling, or you have to force it, give yourself permission to try not to force it. The epiphany that took me to get to like 15 years. And it just clicked in one day. And when I talk, do you start only breathing from the lungs? Can you still breathe from the very bottom of yourself, your back and your pelvis? So from the pelvis to the top of the lungs, from your back to the front. Keep the inner ear soft. Don't let the sounds of the outside world drag your senses elsewhere. Check your eyes. If the eyes are starting to dart around, just barely open the lids enough to see the tip of the nose, look at it with both eyes and let the eyes reshut. Don't let the hands become gripped so the senses of the fingers become numb to all the airflow quality feeling. Let there be a heaviness there. I often find that as I do this, I feel a heaviness in my fingers, palms, and it radiates up to my arms. So where if I'm really in that deeper level state, I'm very alert, but my body is immensely heavy. It all started with my hands one day. And then I felt it in my arms, my shoulders. And so pranayama is just that level of deep relaxation and focus like that, but very alert in the rest of your senses. This is basically like flexing your nerve system in a different way, a level of sharpness. All right. Now, even though rhythms can often make us fall asleep, can you still give some attentiveness to the inhaling syllable S and the exhaling rolling H? And when you roll that S in, don't be afraid for your S to roar a little bit in your own head. Like I said, the waves of the ocean coming in. It doesn't mean loudness to the outside world, but only to your own inner system that kind of rumbles it up. when you continue to breathe from the base of your pelvis up to the top of your lungs, just at that middle point, when you hit the top of the diaphragm, let your breath roll from the bottom of the diaphragm up into the lungs. So now you're becoming aware that there's a separation point that's often used in yoga for the two. So from the bottom of the diaphragm or bottom of the pelvis up to the middle, the top of the diaphragm, and just from the bottom of the top of the diaphragm rolls up into the lungs. So it's not like you're feeling all at once. There's a growth and lift and kind of a opening point, like on an hourglass, right? There's a wide top, wide body, narrow little center. The diaphragm's that narrow little center. You might find some more power in your ood. You're rising up, and a little more measurable release, but a total release on your exhale. Really deep inhales will move your eyes up. Keep them down at the tip of the nose. Check your senses. So notice that when you exhale, your diaphragm remains very open, the same as your inhale, hopefully. Can you slow your exhale by immobilizing the movement of your diaphragm? Now you remember the diaphragm from the pelvis up to the hood, so now you've separated them. You breathe in, breathe from the bottom of the pelvis, top, but find that middle point right there at the diaphragm at the bottom of the lungs and draw it from that bottom of that center point higher, filling the lungs. And when you exhale, use the diaphragm, let it not drop before your lungs are empty, and then empty out the lower half. Still with the same inhale, the draw in the inner nostril to the inner corner of the eye, center of the eye, outer nostril, Ujjayi. But your breath actually doesn't lose a skip. So it's not, when you inhale, you still draw in that same smooth, same speed level of breath, even though you're aware of how it comes from the center of the diaphragm at the top up, like the narrow part of the hourglass. When you exhale, you still exhale the lungs at the same pace, and then you recognize that that diaphragm can be kept narrow, so that it takes a little longer. When you start to exhale the stomach and the pelvis, don't just drop it. You still exhale that same speed in and out. So draw it in, except the out is now taking a little bit longer. Practice this for the next 2 minutes. And so just for the next few minutes, even remove the Ujjayi breathing. On your next exhale, let that be the end. And your next breath in, totally just be a normal, natural breath. Remove the focus, the force of the breath. Start to even then remove the layers of work so that you can just experience it natural, normal. You can recognize for a moment in the first minute your posture is going to shift because you started to flex or move your body in certain ways. And just check in with that so that becomes experience. So the next time you come into this work, you have a little bit of knowledge that maybe your head wants to tilt one way or your back wants to grip in the other. So we can make adjustments. And maybe you can discover why next time if you don't know why now. And just rest, breathing in, breathing out for the next few minutes and enjoy the fruits of your yogic practices. Slowly increase the depths of your breathing. Before you get up to go back into your world, take a moment in that peacefulness. Let yourself take in what you've created. That this moment of rest and respite is just as important as all the moments of activity. This idea that we have so much quote unquote free time to produce totally ignores the experience of being human that we're all going through. Whether fear, sadness, happiness, joy, ups and downs, whether you are incredibly affected or your family is, our value is not in what we produce, but it's deeper. It's getting in touch with that part and that process of ourselves that it is to feel, to experience. Because anything that we create should come from experience and from the heart, just as what I taught years ago that my business does not run my life. And because that my life defines and runs my business. I'm here in Texas. I let my life define where I did my work, and so I'm here with all of you, and I'm eternally grateful. So for you, my friends, don't let this be a worry or a stress that we have to produce or constantly be quote unquote normal. As all things shift and change, what we go through in that shift and change, not just how we survive it, but what we go through and how it changes us and how we change the world with it matters more than anything produced. Take a nice deep breath in. On your exhale, roll to your right side. Take a breath there. Let your head, your heart adjust. Exhale, slowly up you come. All right. If you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself. I'll do my best to answer. Give no promises or guarantees. Give what I got, but the fuck knows if it's right. Anybody? Right.
For the Ujjayi breathing, a couple of things. For
Uh-huh.
the tip of the tongue, where is that exactly on the roof of the mouth? Or
The
like
tongue does the tongue does not touch the roof of the mouth. The tongue, the back of the tongue, the bottom palate, lays on the jaw. The tip of your tongue may touch the back of your bottom teeth. Your tongue stays away from the whole roof.
Okay. And so your mouth is essentially closed and you're not forcefully exuding those noises, you're just kind of taking them in.
Yep, in through the nose and out through the nose. Yeah, you're not forcing, because if you force, you end up with, right? That's what you end up with when you force it. When you're really doing it right, you have to be fairly close to somebody's head to hear it, because it's such an internal process, because you're not just drawing it in here, you're drawing it in way back into the sinuses and everything. So it creates a hollow roaring sound, like an inch back or two back.
Cool. Thank you.
Like if you really get really technical with it, grab your cell phone and get an app that lets you grade sound quality you're making, and see if you put it on your chest and you're doing Ujjayi, do it loud like you're trying to force it, and then do it quieter and see the sound difference, and then try to even cut it down from there a little bit. It's not about being perfectly silent, but it's not about the external sound processes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Great.
Thank
Made sense
you.
to somebody. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Thanks,
All right,
Dustin.
Caitlin. Thanks, Doug.
Oh.
Buddy. All right, Caitlin, what's up?
So whenever we were doing the Warrior 2,
Yeah.
I was trying my best to adjust, like, pressing the index finger down
Yeah.
and engaging the legs, but I still felt tension in my neck. Is
Right.
that normal just to feel at least a little bit of tension, or is it something that I'm not disengaging?
So the neck is a symptom, and even though your big toe and index finger may have been down, let's trace it back from the neck. Do you know where your shoulders were? Do you know where your hips were? Do you know where your knees were? So if you're still having it, the index finger and big toe are step one. Then you've got to kind of, all right, what's out of whack? My neck. Where are my knees? Is one knee locked and one knee bent? Are they both locked? Or can you get each equal? Where are my hips? Is one too high, one too low? Right? Like in Warrior 2. Is my head in line with my pelvis, or is my head forward in my, the back of my head's in line with my pelvis, right? So instead of like moving our heads back like this, maybe I need to move my whole head back. Well, I'm not going to know that unless my shoulders are back. Does that make sense? Break it down, trace it up.
Yeah, I need to practice it more for sure.
So what you can do is use a wall. Make another teacher. Take some shit off your wall, put your back against it, step wide, and then, all right, are my hips there? Great. All right, my hips are there. Are my fingers there? Great. My back is there? Great. My head's here. Well, I push my head into it. Which side of my head is not touching it, right? Get experimental with it like that. You're only going to learn something. What's that line?
I was trying.
Yeah, the best thing for being sad is to learn something. Right? What book was that? Once and Future King, the King Arthur story. It's a good line. It's a Merlin line. It's from a wizard. It works. The Once and Future King. It's a tale of King Arthur and Merlin.
Okay.
It's a fun book. I haven't read it in a long time, but yeah. It's also very sad. Yeah. But all right, anyone else? Yeah, just unmute yourself and ask. Don't wave or anything, because someone's in the chat. Let's see. Thank you, Libby. Oh, it was private. Oh no. All right. It looks like we're all good.
Dustin, I have a question.
Yeah.
When you're bending or bending forward with your arms on the chair,
Uh-huh.
pain in my lower back, like kind of like by my sacrum.
Okay. So I would take your feet wider,
Okay.
because what's happening is your piriformis muscle or your psoas muscle are probably very tight. Like if you're seated a lot right now, like we all are, those muscles tense up a lot. So if you look at Tristan for a second, psoas muscle from inner groin up, from inner groin up to outer hip in through into your low back. Piriformis muscle from your sacral plate to your outer hip. These are two of the biggest muscles that seize up with sedentary seated posture. So when we fold forward, the psoas grips to hold the spine and the piriformis grips to hold the pelvis down. Like we do when we're seated, it overtucks the buttock because we slouch when we sit. I slouch, I know she does. Couldn't make you do. So what you can do is take your feet wider. When you take your feet wider, even if it's 2 foot apart, it relaxes some space to the inner groin so you can learn to lift your hips up and then flex the quads to lift the buttock up. So this can widen. So you learn to not put your weight on this point, but on these points of the thighs and hips. Feel the difference? She feels the difference. So when you try on, take your feet wider and think about opening that groin and widening from your sacral to your thigh bone. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Try that. Report back next week.
All right.
Or Thursday. You're welcome.
All right.
Anyone else? Okay, all right, everyone's good. All right, I think that's it. You good? You have any questions, Tristan? No? Okay. It's just like Penn and Teller, where I'm the talking one and you just don't talk at all.
You
But
can't hear me.
no one could hear Penn and Teller either. All right, everybody. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.
Have a nice night, and I'll see y'all Thursday. Yeah. All right. Take it easy. Bye, Micah. Bye, Katie,
Yeah, good night,
Linda,
Good night, guys.
Kathy, Ryan, Caitlin, everyone that stuck it out.